Hello, this is Governor Andrew Cuomo from the great state of New York. Thank you very much for letting me spend a few minutes with you today by this video. I'd like to be with you in person because I'm very excited about what you're doing. You come together at a very interesting and anxious time for this country. People talk about economic anxiety. I understand what they mean. This is an economy that for the middle class has been very, very difficult. You see middle class workers that are actually going backwards rather than going ahead. And it's been that way for a number of years. Since the 2007 financial debacle, you have people whose savings accounts have been down, the value of their house has been down, and literally their wages in real dollars are going backwards. And these are issues that we've been addressing in the state of New York. It's a complicated problem, but I've always believed that as complicated a problem is as simple as the problem is. There's always a simple fundamental truth. I'm from a county called Queens in New York. In Queens, we used to talk about doing the right thing very early on. There's always a right thing. There's always a right thing in terms of conscience and a right thing that you feel in your gut. One of the things we have here in New York, one of the things we have in this nation, is the greatest workforce on the planet. One of the smartest, most skilled workforces on the planet. The skills that are now required to work in an airport, the technology of the airport, the technology of the planes, as well as the security infrastructure, which is going to become more and more of an issue, is actually rising the skill level that's necessary to work in an airport. And the point we want to make is that we need to pay a fair wage for the qualified workforce that we have in our airports. We've been dealing with that in the state of New York, and we made great progress thanks to 32BJ and Hector Figueroa and his team that really raised up the issue for public consumption, and the public got it. You know, when you talk to members of the public, they understand. That's always been the role of organized labor in New York and in this nation. Organized labor helped build the middle class. You wouldn't have the middle class we have today if it wasn't for organized labor. They are the ones that stopped management, in many cases, from exploiting the worker. So using 32BJ, working in partnership with them, making the case to the public, we've raised the wages of airport workers. And I'm looking forward to doing more. But the truth is, it's not just airport workers. This is a middle class problem. This is a working man problem, a working woman problem, all across the board. You look at where the wealth is coming from in this nation. It's coming more and more from the richest 1%. At the cost of the middle class and at the cost of the working poor. So getting that word out, organizing, and paying the decent wage for the skills that we need is very important. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, former governor of this state, came up with the idea of the minimum wage law. What he said when he was passing the minimum wage law was that it was not a wage that just provided subsistence. It was a wage that allowed one a decent living. You were working full time, you were working hard, you should have a decent living. And what we've been saying here in the state of New York is the current minimum wage is not a decent wage. It is not a wage that you can live on. It's a wage that you can barely scrape by on. And we're actually going to do something about it. And we have proposed raising the minimum wage to $15 per hour. Now, this would be the highest minimum wage of any state in the nation, but I'm proud of it because the minimum wage has been out of whack for too long, and the middle class has been left behind for too long. And working men and working women have been taken advantage of for too long. So it's time we brought some fairness, fundamental fairness to the wage structure. And that's what $15 an hour is all about. We started with the fast food workers. because in many ways they were a very visible case of an insufficient minimum wage. There was also an aggravating factor when it came to the fast food workers. McDonald's, Burger King pay the minimum wage. In a state like New York, the worker is still below poverty with the minimum wage. So the state then has to subsidize the health care and food stamps of the worker in a McDonald's and Burger King. So in many ways, the state of New York wound up subsidizing McDonald's and Burger King, companies that were making billions of dollars. We raised the minimum wage for fast food workers, but we want to raise it all across the board, airport workers, etc. And we're going to tackle that this year. And the fast food workers was just, I like to say, the thin edge of the wedge. It was just a demonstration of the issue, and the public has responded. How are we going to get it done? We're going to get it done the way we've always made advancements for the middle class and for the working men and working women of this nation. We're going to organize, organize, organize. We're going to work hand in glove with labor unions all across this state and all across this nation. Progressive unions like 32BJ. We're going to make the case to the public, and I believe the public is going to understand. And once we get the public to understand, then the politicians will follow. They taught us in high school that the politicians lead. I find more often than not, the public leads and the politicians follow. This is going to be one of those cases. $15 is right, $15 is fair, $15 an hour is the wage you can actually live a decent life on, and that's what we want for people who are working hard. You're working hard, live well, support your family, be able to pay your rent and pay for food, lead a decent life with a decent wage. We're going to make it happen in New York, and we're going to set the bar for states all across the nation. New York has a history of doing that. Maybe it's the New York arrogance, but we'll go out there, we'll lead the fight, we'll set the bar, and we hope it becomes a national model. In the meantime, congratulations to 32BJ for all the great work they've done in New York. I'm glad to see them now organizing nationwide, and I'm glad that they're my partner in making this $15 minimum wage the law across the board in the state of New York. Have a good conference. Let's get to work and let's get this done.